Today's guest on Guitar Players in Isolation is Dayna Manning. She is a recording artist out of Stratford, Ontario, an excellent fingerstyle guitarist in folk music. If you're returning to my channel, thanks so much for the support. If you are new, check around on the channel after you watch this amazing interview, because this is interview number 12. So there's 11 other great ones for you to check out. And if you like it, please subscribe and hit the notification button. All right, let's get started. Dayna, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Great to have you as a guest on Guitar Players in Isolation. The whole point of this thing was when COVID started, I thought it would be great to spotlight local artists. I've just met so many incredible musicians over the last couple months of doing this. They've just had like amazing careers, but yet, you know, kind of the masses don't know about it. So it's, I think it's just a great opportunity to spotlight some of this incredible talent we just have in our own neighborhood. Thrilled to have you on.
Well, thanks for doing this, and I'm honored to be here.
So pretty well, as soon as this lockdown hit, you took right to your Facebook artist page, and you've been doing live mini concerts pretty well from day one on a regular basis. I'm assuming you're getting a lot of amazing feedback from your followers, and it's kind of helping you get through this.
Yeah, it's interesting for me. I kind of got caught, so I stopped doing it on June 1st. So I started doing it initially because I have a business in town called the Folk Army, and I teach kids music, mainly young women, and mainly with a goal of being an artist and songwriting themselves one day. Because of COVID, I usually run a March break program, and I had to cancel it one day before. And I think that I think the kids were scared, right? And I thought going on my Facebook page every day and just playing a song would make things feel kind of normal and for them. And that was honestly my motivation for doing it. And then it just became a thing. People just were really supportive about it, and I enjoyed doing that. I called it break time, and it really was when I was taking a break from my day, and I would just pick up a guitar and play a song.
I encourage everybody to check out her artist page on Facebook and check out some of those performances. The clarity is great on the audio and the video. Let's dive a little bit more into Folk Army. It's your music tool, like you said. If you can tell us a little bit of what makes it extra special. I've also noticed that you've been posting some successes of your students. You have some that have been featured on TVO Kids on Backyard Beats.
Well, I started in 2016. I've had a hard, time navigating the career of being a musician. And I was signed really young, and during my early days in music, I actually was kind of bored because my job was to kind of sit around after I'm done touring a record or whatever. When that time period when you're writing the next record, it was kind of lonely, and I didn't feel like I had a ton to write about because I was just supposed to be at home writing. I don't know. I just kind of got lost in it, and I'm very much a hands-on working person. I like to have a task and a to-do list in the morning and things like that. And I just wanted to look around and think about how I could enable other people to have the gift of music in the way that I had it. And when I was in high school, I was the only girl in the guitar class, and the only one kind of pursuing this. And I didn't have girlfriends around that I played guitar with or sang songs or exchanged musical ideas. And I wanted to create that for them. And I think for me, music, number one in my life, is a self-healing mechanism and tool that I constantly and always go to. And I just think about how many times I was as a teenager, I would literally fall asleep in my bed with my guitar beside me. And that's my goal, is to give these girls a guitar and to pour themselves into our ukulele, and just an outlet to get through life. Maddie Nell was the one on Backyard Beats, and she's just an extraordinary young, gifted child that I met when I think she was 4. I saw her singing with her father, and just been teaching her ukulele. I've got actually my last few record releases, I had 3 or 4 of them at every concert come and do a Songwriters in the Round to open the show, and the requirement was that they had to have one original song to be a
That's excellent. So you're teaching guitar, banjo, and ukulele?
I do teach all three, yeah.
I also noticed at the beginning of the year you do a lot of house concerts, and you travel kind of between Toronto and Montreal. Curious how you got into that, and also your opinion. If you see maybe that's a way musicians can come out of this lockdown. Maybe house concerts. It's a viable option. Before theaters start to open up again.
House concerts are one of my, if not my favorite concerts to do, whether they're in your backyard or your living room. Yeah, I definitely see that as a way to get people together again. I have a feeling they will be outside in the summertime if we're allowed to have them. Social distance in a backyard, maybe playing off a deck or something along those lines. Yeah, that's definitely an avenue I see opening up. And the streaming, I think it's so interesting that I've never hopped online and played a song live before mid-March, and now it just seems like a normal thing to do. And I really enjoy it, and I do feel connected to other people when I'm doing it. So hopefully that helps. I don't know what the way out of it is. I find that actually for the first few weeks, I wasn't even, usually I'd watch a TV show at the end of the day or do something to relax. I wasn't doing that at all. I was reading more news and problem solving in my head, more things I could do to kind of make it through this time. And my brain is still there, like still trying to figure out the first steps and back to playing live music.
Your latest theater performances were really unique. It's in support of your latest album. And you created something that you titled Chamber Folk. You're performing you on vocals and acoustic guitar, backed by flute, violin, cello, and French horn. Can you tell us how you put this together and how it came to be?
Yeah, well, originally there's an amazing program in town. Well, I guess, what would they call them? They're called Inner Chamber. And it's a concert series, I guess, that's put on throughout the winter months. And each show is original programming. So they don't hire people with a show to come and they think up the shows and do orchestrations for them. And I was invited to do a show with Inner Chamber. And as soon as I heard my guitar with that setting of instruments, I just was on another planet. I never wanted to do anything again. And it was really honestly in a room with no microphones, no nothing, and it was the most balanced, beautiful thing I'd ever heard.
Wow.
I also feel, as I dug into it, I felt like it was just kind of this perfect merge of styles, because folk music is the music of the people and chamber music was the music of the people in the classical world that was played in their homes, in small venues, informally, right, by professionals and amateurs alike. Same with folk. And so I just thought there was this beautiful merge. Also, it's part of my need to be tied into my community. So I'm tied into the community with the kids. Now I'm tied into the community here in Stratford, Ontario. We probably have some of the best classical musicians in the entire country because of the Stratford Festival.
Right.
And I realized that they were all my neighbors and lived around me, and I wanted to... make music with my neighbors, and it just happens to be on another level because of where I live.
Some of your neighbors, I'm guessing, are your parents, and your dad played on this record, and the record's called Morning Light. Yeah, your dad plays trumpet, and so do you apparently, because there's a tune where you're playing second trumpet with your dad on it.
I am. I honestly am playing about 8, couple notes, but. Yeah, I wrote a song to feature my dad's trumpet playing. He's an incredible trumpet player, has been all my life. He's in his 70s now, and I just wanted to get something on tape that showed the beauty of his playing. And I did take up trumpet a few years ago. It was mainly because I wanted to be able to communicate more with the classical musicians that I was playing with, and just start reading. I've never really read one-note music, like on an instrument like that, and so I just wanted to dive in and do that. So I played it in a community band too when it's allowed to operate. called New Horizons for adults learning new concert band instruments.
Was he part of the Stratford festivals and stuff like that on trumpet?
No, he actually is from the United States, and he was kind of scouted by a school. I know it sounds weird, but they were looking for a high school music teacher, a specific thing in the 70s, and a choir director from one of the churches here knew of my dad. My dad really excelled and went through a lot of university on scholarships, and when he became a music teacher, he was 76, and he was hired and then handed a picket sign because there was huge strikes going on. And so this fella found him and brought him up, and he actually just ran high school music courses here all his life, and he's retired. But he did, in the 90s, get guitars bought for the high school and started a guitar program there.
And your mother's a musician too, is what I read.
Yeah, she's plays clarinet. She plays on the album as well.
Oh, wow.
And I always try to have them on my records. They're on most of my records, to be honest.
They come cheap, right?
They come cheap. Yeah, they even help.
Not union scale rates or something.
That's great. So, yeah, they're fantastic. They played at all the release shows live with us, and it's an honor. They're fantastic musicians.
Many of those who have reviewed your albums compare your voice to a combination of Dolly Parton and Joni Mitchell. To me, certainly when you go up high, when you hit your higher notes, you sound very much like Dolly Parton. The Joni Mitchell thing is super clear. If you listen on her latest album, Morning Light, to a song called Free Man in Paris. Now, I'll admit, I didn't know when I was flipping through the songs that actually was a Joni Mitchell cover. But when I was listening to it, all I could think of was Joni Mitchell. It's just spot on, your voice. It's so reminiscent of her stylings. Do you often get compared to Joni Mitchell?
Yeah, depending on what I'm playing. Also, I have to say, she wasn't one of my early influences. I got into her after I put out my first record. But Court and Spark I've never listened. There's no other album I've listened to more.
So who are some of your influences other than Joni Mitchell?
Tom Petty was my original songwriting influence. That record, Wildflowers, I actually think Wildflowers is my favorite record. Court and Spark's my favorite record to sing along with. I'm definitely an album person, as opposed to getting into a band's entire catalog. So, I like pretty typical stuff. I love the Beatles. I love Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. When I saw that they were going to play the whole album live at Massey Hall, I got myself a ticket and went by myself. I just, that stuff I can't miss. And I'm almost I don't want to go with anyone because I don't want to talk during it. It's kind of crazy. My favorite recent record is that Casey Musgraves' Golden Hour record. I just think the song on it.
You covered one of her songs on one of your.
Yeah, I covered a few of those.
I can't remember the one, but I remember when it came out. I really liked it.
Yeah, Rainbow or Slow Burn.
Slow Burn. That is an incredible tune.
Study in key changes, learn that record. There's key changes going on that you don't even realize happen because of the way that they've been. Yeah, that record's really well done.
Interesting.
There's another song on your album called King of the Background, and it's a tribute to Richard Manuel from the band. Not sure if you saw my one of my previous interviews with Colin Linden, but he works so closely with members of the band, and he actually started to work with them when Richard was alive. I'm curious about your connection to Richard and how this song came to be.
Well, Richard's from my hometown here in Stratford, Ontario, and he was good friends with my peers, my friends' fathers, and in fact, two of them were pallbearers at his funeral. And I wanted to do something that captured his legacy in a way, but also in a real way. I mean, Richard tragically committed suicide in the 80s after a show, and was trying to kind of launch a solo career at the time, and I wanted to capture a bit of the struggle it is for musicians trying to get their voice out there. I guess king of the background is kind of saying his role in the band, right? That's kind of a commentary on that. Also, he learned to sing around the corner, literally like 2 blocks from me at a Baptist church that they just tore down this year, with his brothers, and I learned to sing in a church just down the road, and I kind of felt some parallels with him, not in a suicidal way, just to be clear.
No, it's okay.
Just in the struggle of trying to find your own voice as an artist, I think.
Oh, I'm glad you explained that, because I didn't piece that together.
Further to the struggle theme, you did a lot of crowdsourcing to raise money for Morning Light. And unfortunately, you got caught up in the Pledge Music fiasco. A lot of the money that you raised went up in smoke as they declared bankruptcy. So you had to start all over again, and you raised even more. You must have been just thrilled and amazed about the power of your own fan base.
Oh, it really does. I would not be here at all. I would not be continuing to sing songs or write them. I mean, I would do it for myself. But publicly, if it wasn't for my fans, they really, really keep me going. And they're diehard. I mean, they've been with me since day one. And those are the people that are supporting me. And a lot of people in my community really supported me through that. I had fundraised through Pledge, and about half of the money that I fundraised went up in smoke, like you said, with them claiming bankruptcy. And so I had to go to Kickstarter. And I also had a factor grant for the album. And so that came with deadlines and timelines. And I was literally in the middle of recording this album and 2 months away from being finished and having that deadline. So I literally spent 3 days, I shut down everything and just spent 3 days in my brain trying to figure out what I was going to do, and that's the only thing I could come up with.
Well, at the same time that you put out Morning Light, you also put out a book called Many Moons. And the book is a memoir that chronicles your songwriting process. And you sent me one of the chapters that talks about your song From Canada and your fear of flying and meeting Bill Lishman. The story really exemplifies how you're a visual songwriter. Can you tell us a little bit about that song and your meeting up with Bill Lishman?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the book is just a memoir told through my songs, and it's in chronological order. So I tried to have it go over about, 25 years, I guess, and it starts at the beginning, and that chapter is actually kind of in the middle. But
okay.
Yes, From Canada is a song that I co-wrote with a man named Bill Lishman, and Bill Lishman is better known as Father Goose. So Bill Lishman is the man behind the movie Fly Away Home. Okay. And somehow, when I was younger, I missed this movie. I never saw it. And I was in Ottawa in 2013. I was attending the Canadian Folk Music Awards, and I had breakfast in the morning with some other songwriters. My friend David Newland mentioned that the last time he was in Ottawa, he had attended a National Geographic Society dinner at the Aviation Museum, and that he had met a band named Bill Lishman who gave him a tour of all the airplanes. And then he proceeded to tell me who Bill Lishman was, and I was absolutely blown away. I couldn't believe that someone had actually managed to fly with the birds. So he basically led flocks of Canada geese with an ultralight aircraft, right? So I started researching his story, and I thought, I have to write a song like this. About this, and I want it to feel like it's taking off and flying and the excitement of that. And so I started writing it, and about halfway through, I thought, it feels a little unauthentic. This isn't my story. I haven't experienced this. And I asked David to hook me up with Bill, and we had a beautiful conversation over the phone, and he offered to send me a poem that he wrote while he was flying with the birds. So he sent this along, and I ended up writing the poem into the song, and we co-wrote the song. And I actually got to debut it at his house on Earth Day, which was really, really cool. And he lives in underground geodomes that he built and designed himself, because he's just an amazing inventor. He, I think one of his first projects was that he bought a model of the lunar landing module and then scaled it up to life size in his backyard. He's just amazing. So he imprinted on these birds, back in the day, and it took him 3 times because he hadn't imprinted the sound of the ultralight aircraft. And the geese were afraid of his aircraft, so he finally did that, and they followed him into the air. He took them down to the States. They came back the next April at 11 o'clock in the morning. He said he'll never forget it, sitting on his porch. And he says that they come back around the same, he thinks it's the same day, same time every single year. But sadly, Bill passed away just a few years ago, I think 2 years December, and I was honored. I got to play this at his celebration of life. It was the last thing that happened, and I was so honored to be a part of it. Wow. And to know that man. He taught me so much about what it was like to welcome an interested stranger into your life. I think being in the public eye for me has always been tough, and I never know. I'm like, why does this person want to talk to me? I don't know why I'm like that, but I'm shy. Honestly, is the bottom line of it. But he taught me how you say, really, you want to know about that? Come on in. Let me tell you. And it was just awesome. So I'm still friends with his family and see them from time to time. His sister lives in Stratford, and I always see his son and grandchildren when they come to town. It's really nice.
That's a wonderful story, and I encourage everybody to check out Dayna's book, Many Moons, and her album, Morning Light. You started opening up for Burton Cummings when you were just a teenager. You go into that book, too, about how much you learned by him. How did you get connected with Burton, and what lessons did you take away from that experience?
Part of my management team, I guess, were friends with Burton, and I think somebody saw me, or Burton saw me play, and he was doing this opening or up close and alone tour. So it was just him and a piano, and they told me that I could open the shows if I handled the merch.
I love it. That's great.
Yeah. So I didn't have to sell the merch. I never had to run the merch table, but I had to count it in with the house and count it out at the end of the night. But I have to tell you that tour was so exciting that I don't even remember. I don't remember once counting in or counting out the merch. I don't even remember that whatsoever. I got to play a half an hour before he did from PEI to Vancouver Island. Yeah, during the summer while I was 18 years old.
It's amazing. What an experience.
Yeah, it was incredible. It was the best tour I've ever done. We toured with a lighting guy, a sound guy, and a road manager, and the bus driver in Burton across the country. And I think one of the big things I learned from Burton was about being a showman. There was maybe, I would say, a good 20 people that followed us right across the country.
Really?
And I always thought, every night Burton would introduce the songs, and he would kind of say the same jokes, and at that time I didn't know how to be a performer. I thought I had to be original every single night, and these different things. These people who I would kind of go down in the crowd after and stand with some of them sometimes, and they'd be like, they would know what he was going to say before he said it, and they just thought they were on the inside, and really, they were part of the team, and it really taught me about how to treat fans and how to go out to the merch table after the show and sign all their CDs. He always did. Just be, a good human, be kind while you're being a performer.
So how many shows was that tour?
Oh, maybe 20, I would say.
Oh, wow.
I would guess.
It took me a while to figure that out, too. Like when you see a really good performer and he kind of tells the little stories between songs, and it sounds like he's just telling it for the first time, and you feel, as an audience, you feel so special because you're sharing this thing that's only happening in this moment. But then, if you follow that artist, you see that it happens every night. They have a way of communicating that it does seem like it's for the first time, and that audience is the only ones that hear it. It's a real skill, and it's amazing when you see it.
It is. It's really awesome.
Start of this, late March, he was doing some Facebook stuff from his house. I don't know if you caught that, but his voice is just, it's spot on still. Like,
he only gets better. He only gets better.
Incredible talent. This a real Canadian treasure for sure.
So back when you were a teenager, you were doing a showcase at Toronto's Lee's Palace, and you were discovered by the keyboardist from Honeymoon Suite, and then that furthered you to get introduced to EMI, which ended up signing you.
Yeah, it's so funny. I met Ray. I met Ray that night, and it was so interesting. I met him and another woman named Sandy McNevin, who ended up kind of looking after me for the first little bit in the music business. And neither of them worked with young artists. But that night was neat because Sandy and Ray didn't know each other, but I could use each other to vet the other person. I had no idea. I didn't know them at all. I literally was hired to babysit a kid from Stratford, and I was hired to take him to Toronto to visit his relatives. And then I would sneak out of the house and go to open stages, and I was 16 years old. Like, It was just crazy. Yeah. Whenever I tell my story, I'm like, to tell the folk army, because I'm like, this is what we used to do. We don't do that anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want their parents getting mad at you.
Yeah, but if it was an open stage and you had a guitar on your back, no one would ever ID me. They just knew that I wanted to be there for the music, and I never did anything wrong. So yeah, I was at Lee's Palace and I met him. I had no idea who Honeymoon Suite was. Like, when he told me that he was from Honeymoon Suite, I was like, oh, is that like a Toronto band? And he's like, no, we've kind of toured around. I had no idea. Yeah. Through Ray, I was able to set up a speculation deal with a guy named Harry Hess, who's the lead singer of Harum Scarum.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and he had a studio in Phase 1. He had the small room in Phase 1 in Toronto, and he set up this spec deal with Harry and with all of his friends and all of the people he's met in the business to that point. And we started making my first album for free, like honestly for free. And then he would take me to the different record companies, and I would go in their offices and play for them just acoustic guitar and sing. And finally EMI did buy that record. And
wow.
Yeah, so everyone did.
That's a really cool story.
It is cool. It is really cool to be a teenager and make your first album without the record company A&R team involved.
So the first album you did with EMI is called Volume 1, and when you look that up, you see credits to Sean Lennon. And when I'm saying Lennon, I mean Lennon.
Yeah, Sean Lennon, I met, same kind of story. I was on a bill with, I was opening for The Pursuit of Happiness at Lee's Palace.
Okay.
And Sean was playing at Lee's Palace, I think it was the following Monday, which is strange, but I believe it was the following Monday or Tuesday, to do a showcase with Yoko Ono for one of her records. And when he came into the venue...
Sorry, I'm laughing.
Yeah, I know.
I've seen her performances.
Yeah. I haven't, actually. So when he came into Lee's Palace, I happened to be on the stage, and we started speaking after, and we talked for quite a while before. I didn't know who he was. And I went to the washroom, and I remember really clearly, this other girl goes, do you know who you're talking to? I was like, yeah, his name is Sean. He's really nice. Do you know him? And she goes, yeah, well, no, but he's John Lennon's son. And I was like, he is? And we had already made plans to go next door and have a pizza. So we had just hit it off. We just hit it off. It was just one of those things. And I had studio booked the next day, and he came into the studio with us. And my favorite thing was, I can't remember if it was I or Now, there was an interview with Yoko Ono that had come out maybe a week or two after, and she was pissed at Sean in it for staying up all night with some girl that he met. And I was like, that was me. We just stayed in the studio all night, and it was just crazy. It was just one of those times where everything aligned for us to have some time in the studio together and make something cool. And that's actually my favorite song from that album.
So songs from Volume 1 got rotated on Much Music, and you were nominated for a Juno for Best New Artist.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was awesome.
You were at the Junos, so that must have been pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. My uncle and my mom flew out there it was in Vancouver that year. I attended the Junos. I went to an after party, and I think I ate something that bad, and I ended up going home very quickly. I was just really intimidated by the music business. I didn't really know how to navigate it. I was just really young, and I had literally wrote the first 12 songs that were on that album in my childhood bedroom, thinking no one would ever hear them.
Right,
and it was just this ride. Yeah.
So the success of Volume 1 led to doing another album called Shades with EMI behind you. And this time they sent you off to LA to work with engineer Jim Scott, who's known for his work with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And with that, Chad Smith ended up playing drums on the album. I mean, that must have been just an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. Yeah.
Wow.
That was one of the best musical times of my life. I was there for quite a while. We were at the original Ocean Way studio, which was like 6000 Sunset. You know, the room, the back room where we did the beds was the same place that Tom Petty did Wildflowers, and, you know, Chili Peppers did Californication and all these things. And, you know, the big room was Frank Sinatra's kind of symphony room that you'd see back in, and then the C room was the Pet Sounds studio where Pet Sounds was recorded. Yeah, so I got to work all three of those studios at some points on that album, and yeah, it was a real opportunity to play with Chad Smith, and so much fun. He's hilarious. I wasn't sure if he was Chad Smith or Will Ferrell.
Yeah, that's the running joke. The poor guy's got to live with that for...
No, I know, but he's really that funny. He's really great.
Because I remember watching a special on the Dixie Chicks, and I know he recorded on an album. Was it around the same time that that album with the Dixie Chicks came out?
It was after. That was maybe 3 or 4 years after.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was in the special where, you know, how they fell apart with the whole comment against Bush.
Yeah.
The world's changed. We can all talk bad about the president now, and back then it wasn't so much the case.
That I did see that special, and I did notice that a lot of the players from my Shades record were on that Dixie Chicks session, because they were Jim's guys, you know. And
Right.
Jim Scott was amazing. He won the Grammy of the Year for Wildflowers as engineer, and he, like, when I bought that record, I knew it was the best sounding record I'd ever heard. And then it won the Grammy for engineer, and I was like, yes, I knew it. It was so great. I was like 15 too. But Jim does not play any instruments. He's not a musician, but he has the biggest, most beautiful instrument collection I've ever seen in the world. Huh. He has a warehouse full of drum kits and guitars, and they're all the best sounding stuff. And when you go to Jim's place, you play his acoustic guitars, which are, you know, vintage, insane Martins and Gibsons. And when we wanted a new snare sound, there was 17 snares lined up down the hallway, and you just went and got another snare, right?
Wow.
That was his. You know, I thought I was going to be there to learn the big recording secrets, but the secret was put a good sound in front of a good microphone.
Get the sound right the first time, and then you can work with it.
Yeah, he was a master at that.
So what cool guitars were you able to play on?
At the time I wasn't like that into guitar. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm just I know that one of them was like a J45, you know, very old, like 60s J45, maybe even older. There was just a different, I don't know. I've always had weird guitars. I've got one Gibson, but my guitars are all made by a luthier here in town, and then I have a Larrivee that I got this year, which I love. I don't know my guitar models very well.
Get into gear a little later, but yeah, it's Michael McConville, right? Is that who builds your guitars? Yeah, and he's local to Stratford, right?
Yeah, he taught me how to play guitar.
Oh, okay. We'll get to gear shortly. Before I ask the next question, before kind of streaming destroyed the industry, budgets were pretty big. So, you know, you had EMI as a label, and you're out in LA. Like, how long was the process to make that album?
It ended up being really long because they hated the record. It really had this very typical Americana sound to it. Which they thought was too country. And I think they would have rather me be like Avril Lavigne then, it just, so I had Greg Lease on pedal steel, just gorgeous. Last time I saw him was with Bob Dylan at Maple Leaf Gardens, and just all these folks that I was really honored to have on the record, but they didn't really like the record. And so they did send me back to redo a couple tracks, which is actually how Chad Smith ended up on the record.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then they sat on it for quite a long time. They sat on it, I think it came out, when did it come out? I don't even know, like 2002, fall of 2002. And I started recording it January of 2001. So that's over 18 months.
Wow.
But, we were done recording, within a couple months. I think that initially I was there for 3 or 4 months, and then I went back for maybe 2 weeks or something along those lines. Yeah, they really didn't like it. And so I had kind of ran out of my advance money when my album came out. I was waitressing in a restaurant downtown. And, hindsight's 2020. Next time anyone offers me a record deal, which will never happen, I'm just going to ask to be put on the payroll.
This might be from a different point in your career, but it was a fun story from your book where you were having problems renting a car, and Spirit of the West kind of saved you and took you on their tour bus.
That was pretty early up. That was before all of this. Before I didn't have a credit card, and our card was booked on another person's credit card, and we were in Winnipeg. I think we were starting a tour with them out west, and luckily we had done this show together on CBC called the 9 O'Clock Show, and there's a clip on YouTube.
I saw that. Yeah, I'll include that.
Yeah.
Come here to kiss their dead, and if Venice is sinking, I'm going under. It's beauty's religion, and it's christened me with wonder.
I just love that. I got to sing Venice Was Sinking with them, and that show was made over 2 or 3 days at the CBC building, so we really got up to some nonsense backstage. We had just had the best time. I love those guys. Yeah. And so they invited me to open up their tour, and I traveled with an amazing musician named Kevin Fox, a cello player. It was just the two of us. And when we were in Winnipeg, we realized we weren't going to get to the next show because we had no car, there was no bus, no train, no nothing that could get us there in time. And so we had to go with our tails between our legs and say, can we hitch a ride until we can figure this out? And I'm not sure if we ended up on their bus the whole time or just part of the time, but man, it was shenanigans. They had one extra bunk, which Kevin took, and then I was on the couch up front. It was,
was this a tour in support of your first record?
It was, yeah.
You did a lot of touring as a young musician.
Yeah, it was the fall of '97 that one was happening.
So the success of Shades ended up getting you hooked up with Lilith Fair, which was a massive, huge tour led by Sarah McLachlan and a host of huge big name artists. You were on it for the first 2 tours. I mean, what an incredible experience that was. I mean, you were playing with the who's who of the music industry.
Lilith Fair was a partnership, I think, between Sarah, Terry McBride, who owned Network Records, and a fellow named Dan. Oh, I can't remember right now, but I think there was like an agent and the manager and Sarah that were all together. I can't remember exactly, but Terry was a big fan of mine, and he really loved my first album, and so he had invited me to be a part of it. And I was sometimes on the third stage and sometimes on the second stage, but I was never on the main stage. Except for this is great. This is a great story. Except for the first time in Toronto, the first day I was ever joined Lilith Fair, I was so nervous that day. I was 19 years old. I'd never met any of my really big heroes, and Sarah was certainly one of them. And I was very nervous going down. I was so nervous I didn't even bring my guitar. I just forgot it. Like, it was really hilarious. Luckily, a friend of mine was doing backline for the show and had a guitar that I had played tons. And so the first day, Toronto, I believe it was 2 shows back to back. The first day, I'm supposed to be on the second stage, and it gets rained out, and they asked me if I would like to go on the main stage and play a shorter set. So that's in front of, I don't know, 20,000 people, 16,000. I don't remember. It was like full capacity at the Wilson Amphitheater, or whatever it's called now. Budweiser State. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, Budweiser.
Anyway, I don't even know. I don't know what I'm talking.
Doesn't matter.
So I walk on stage and I hear the crowd cheer, and I've never heard that. Like, I've been in that crowd,
Right.
and I just start crying. Like, I just, like, my tears. Like, I was really, really overwhelmed, and I played, I think, 4 or 5 songs. And I sold 400 records that day at the merch tent. Can you believe it? Like, just incredible. And so that was, the first experience, being thrown right in there, forgetting my guitar. I hadn't even met anybody yet. And then at the end of every show, you got to go on stage and sing with the Indigo Girls and whoever else was there. I mean, I've shared, because of microphone, because of Lilith Fair, I've got to share microphones with Bonnie Raitt and Sinead O'Connor, and I would have lunch with the Indigo Girls on the road, and get to kind of, just...
Sheryl Crow was part of this thing, and I think even Madonna was part of
it. Jewel was part of it as well. She was an incredible live performer.
I think.
Yeah.
What I read about on Lilith Fair, there was like 3 stages. There was like a main, a second, and then the other one was kind of like people who just won contests and got to participate. But you were on the kind of the second one, so you were on the whole tour, right?
I was on the whole tour through Canada the first year, and then I think we might have dipped into the States slightly. Into the northern states, and then the second year, I don't think I did all of Canada. I know I did Detroit. It's really tough because so much happened for me at that age, and I actually didn't even know what I was supposed to remember or pay attention to, if that makes sense. And looking back, I can remember some things, but I can't remember all of it, to be honest.
So is there any kind of fun behind-the-scenes stories you can share from your experience at Lilith Fair with some of these huge-name artists?
I don't have it, particular to Lilith Fair, I don't have many. I was more just really quiet and reserved and kind of took a background position there. But Spirit of the West, man, we had some good times. Vince, their drummer, has quite the sense of humor, if you've ever seen anything with them or met him. Yeah. He would come on stage, I would be, singing my heart out on a heartfelt ballad or something, and the audience would start laughing, right? I don't know what is going on. All those players beside me, and Vince is at the back of the stage dressed up like a janitor. He's put the janitor's coveralls on. He's got the broom going, and he starts ramming the broom into my stool as I'm trying to get through the song. Then he leaves the stage, comes back with a box of tiny powdered donuts and starts feeding them to my cello player as he's playing with his powdered sugar going down his cup. Just absolutely hilarious stuff. And my job at the end of every show was in the middle of home for a rest. Vince would come out from behind the drum kit and down a beer, and I would run the beer up on the stage. And my big plan was I was going to put Buckley's in it on the last day, but I didn't But that was fun. I loved those guys playing pranks on us all the time. It was really fun.
So your third album was called Folkyo, and you did it by yourself. So you weren't with EMI for this one. You started your own label. You co-produced and engineered it. So the process was quite a bit different. Can you step us through on how you coped with the differences and what you learned, your experience doing it yourself?
Oh, well, I mean, for me, I really enjoyed it because I'm just so hands-on and just love to tinker with things. I'm like a project person, and as soon as I got my first M-Box and Pro Tools, man, you couldn't stop me. Like, cool. I made the closet into a vocal booth and, all that kind of stuff. Just started experimenting, and I just loved having the ability to bring to life some things that I heard. Folkyo was I kind of started the songs with EMI involved, and then they pulled out of being involved with it. So I did get the advantage of having some demo tracks and recordings that I could use from bigger studios as a part of my my setup. So I mean, it was hard though. I remember back, like, I just remember how slow Pro Tools was when it first came out. Like, I mean, I had challenges from every angle. My friend Siegfried Meyer, we went to high school together. We were in guitar class together, and he's become quite a producer and has his own studio, I think in Goderich and Toronto. And he helped me finish that album. And he was teaching at OEART at the time, which is a school in London, a recording school. And so we would go overnight, like literally in the middle of the night, for drum sessions when no one else was using the studios, and get a drum track when we could and put this whole thing together. In hindsight, I think because I could do anything, I did way too much on that record. Like the art of minimalism was not a part of that album, which I think you just have to go through at some point. But every production idea I could possibly imagine ended up on that album. And then I, went through not being able to perform it live, which we all go through. And I think I learned some lessons from that for sure.
So from there, you kind of started a super trio called Trent Severn, and it was with M. Gryner and Lindsay Schindler. M. Gryner previously played keyboards with David Bowie. So the albums were a lot of Canada-focused stuff, talking about towns and things about Canada. You produced all 3 albums.
I co-produced the first record, but I actually produced and engineered myself the last 2 records.
Cool. So how did Trent Severn get together?
I actually moved away from Southern Ontario. I moved to Northern BC. I actually lived on the Alaska Highway for...
Oh, wow.
After Folkyo. I kind of played some shows out there, and I ended up really loving it out there. I met someone, and I moved up there for a while. And I wasn't doing too much musically. I was still writing songs. I had kind of lost a connection to the reasons I was doing things. I don't know, I just kind of got messed up and needed to find my place again. So I started writing up there. I started writing songs about my connection to my community and the earth and stories that were around me. And I played a show with M. When I came back this way, I would come back and play a couple shows at a time. And we played a show together in Sarnia. I opened up for her. It's her kind of home base. And I played a song called Charlie Lake, which is actually on Morning Light. So I probably wrote Charlie Lake in 2010 or 11, but I never released it until last fall. So I played this song called Charlie Lake, and she had this idea for a kind of CSNY meets Stomping Tom
That's
trio.
a good way to describe it. Yeah, I get it. Okay.
Yeah, trio of girls, and then we just started brainstorming what that looked like. And originally, the original fiddle player was a girl named Laura C. Bates from Stratford, and my neat fact is that I actually wrote my first song, the song that I think got me a record deal and all that thing, after I put her to bed when I was babysitting her. When I was 16, on her father's guitar, which was really neat to be in a band with her 20 years later. We kind of got a lot of the record together. We were doing it from long distance, which was so much fun because it was so neat to just be going about your day and then just get this amazing song in your email from M. That would ignite your soul, and then just start working on it, or writing a song in response to it that you think would complement it on an album, and putting all these things together. That was really an exciting time for me. I felt like I had refound music, and a reason to do it, I guess. Put out that first record for very little money. Like, it was just our own investments, and her brother co-produced it with us in the band. And it was, quite pieced together, and it did really well. Our first gig ever was an invite to play on Q on CBC, which was guest hosted. We didn't CG on, but it was guest hosted that time, and it was really amazing to like have that kick off our career. It was pretty cool.
Take me back to Ontario, here I go.
Well, you guys were truly Canadian, that's for sure. I mean, you did your own version of O Canada, and Trent Severn was part of the flag raising ceremony on Parliament Hill for Canada Day.
That I considered the days around that as like kind of like the pinnacle of my life.
Oh, okay.
They were so thrilling and amazing. So yeah, we were invited to do that, and then later in the day we were going to backed up Chris Hadfield on Space Oddity for the first time ever on Earth.
So he had called you from the space station, and then you played a song kind of over the phone going up to space.
Yeah, kind of.
Here am I sitting in a tin can, far above the world.
And Chris are from the same hometown, and years ago someone from her hometown said, hey, you should write a song about this guy, Chris Hadfield. He's an astronaut. And
Right.
This was years before Chris was the commander of the ISS or had done that mission. And Em wrote this beautiful song called Christopher about him, which I love. Like, it's one of my favorite songs. So they formed a friendship, and through that connection, he had heard our first album, and he really loved this song called Trustcott that I had written for the album. That was the last song, I think, on the record. And he asked if he could call into one of our shows and be a surprise for the audience, which, man, they were surprised. So we looked at all of our dates, and we thought, since he loved the Trustcott song so much, that we would do it from Goderich, Ontario, because Trustcott, the story is from that area. And we thought it would be a really neat way to connect. And so all day, it was sometime in March of 2013, we were just coming up with questions for him, and the girls wanted me to do all the talking, which I did. It was amazing. I'd never met him. I don't remember anything that happened that day or that show or anything, just except for that phone call, because it was so exciting and so terrifying at the same time. So he called and talked to us for probably 10 or 15 minutes, and we played him a song. And that's on YouTube too. You could find that somewhere.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then separately we were invited to raise the flag on Canada Day.
Gotcha.
And then he was invited to do Space Oddity, so we thought we'd put the whole thing together. And we got to do rehearsals the day before.
That I saw. You did a live performance with him singing and playing guitar.
Yeah, it was interesting.
This is Major Tom to ground control. I love forevermore, and I'm floating in a most peculiar way, and the stars look very different today.
It was interesting because we couldn't really rehearse with him, so we had to rehearse everything prior to actually playing with him, with someone standing in as him, and then we kind of got one run through that day. But it was really neat, really neat experience. Also because that day, the Canada Day morning, I had written a song for the Snowbirds that was also on the album, and I had written it because years earlier at an air show I had sang the anthem, and one of the Snowbirds came up to me and said, hey, I've got all your albums, I've been to some of your shows with my wife, and I'm a big fan. If you ever write anything that we could fly to, let me know, right? So this is just like a seed that was planted in the back of my head, I think in 2009. So as I was writing songs, I actually wrote this song called Freedom in Hawaii. I wrote it in Hawaii because I was feeling extremely free as a Canadian. I don't know, in America for some reason, and I wanted to reclaim the word a little bit. So I wrote this song and dedicated it to the team in the album cover, but I never told them that I did it or anything. I never said a word about it because the fellow that I knew wasn't on the team anymore, was busy doing other. I just didn't mention it. So, but it happened to be that the days before leading up to Canada Day, they did a show in London, and someone told them about our song, and said that we would be in Ottawa too, and they sent us an email. So we wake up on Canada Day to an email from the team coordinator on the Snowbirds saying, "Hey girls, we hear you have a song about us. We're going to be here too if you want to meet up and say hi or whatever." So that was kind of neat. We got to meet the Snowbird team that day, and since then I've seen the team fly to the song 4 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but at the end of Canada Day, we were in kind of like a private section behind Parliament Hill with 2 astronauts and an entire Snowbirds team watching the fireworks over the Ottawa River, and I'm just like, so this is what happens when you write songs, you know?
That's great, eh? The power of a good song.
That's a powerful story. I'm assuming the Jen Casey passing in Kamloops had a huge effect on you.
It really did. I couldn't move for 2 days, to be honest. It was really, really affected me, and it was even my friend, the fella who had wrote us that morning. He was the same number as the plane that went down years ago.
Oh, wow.
And my friend who asked me to write the song, Mike French, the original Snowbird that I met, he just retired a couple days ago from being the commander of the Snowbirds, and it was under his watch. And my heart goes out to them, and I feel so much for them.
Yes.
I was deeply affected by it.
Well, let's move on to guitars. This is called Guitar Players in Isolation. Those that know your music know you as a terrific singer, but you're also an incredible fingerstyle guitar player. So let's talk a bit about that style of playing. It's not easy. If you ever try to learn a James Taylor song properly, you're going to quickly realize how hard fingerstyle guitar playing really is.
As you go, there's so many different ways to be a guitar player, and I've met some of the lead players I've ever met who are just trying to, it's like, can you do that finger picking thing again? They're just trying to dissect it, you know? Yeah. Different people have different talents on the instruments, I think.
So who are your influences with regards to guitar and finger picking?
Oh, that's so interesting that I just could do it. I didn't listen to any, like my teacher taught me a few things and I was off to the races with it. The only thing that I can think of as to why I could do it is I have, Kentucky blood in me, and I think I have relatives that picked banjos on the porch. You know, like I just feel like when I picked a guitar, I could already do it. And when I was younger, I guess I don't even know how to answer that question. I honestly don't. I never sat down and picked apart a million different finger picking licks or anything like that. I'm just not that guitar player. I just explore and see what comes out, I guess.
So did you start on banjo or guitar?
No, I started on guitar.
Okay.
My teacher just taught me this riff that I think he calls "I'll Be Gone," and I just went from there. And then I had this relationship with him where he'd teach me new intervals or new chords or anything, and I would just bring back a song every week that I'd written with what he'd shown me, as opposed to learn the song that he taught me. I don't know why.
It's a different approach. It was really geared towards the song and I guess your voice.
Trying to play a lot of traditional guitar stuff, even Tom Petty was my hero. I couldn't make a Tom Petty song sound good on the guitar because of the vocal range, and where I need to, capo it, or the voicings just didn't sound right once I changed them to where they need to be for me.
Right.
When playing like these classic guitar riffs and things. And I really just found that writing myself new songs was my easy way out.
Gotcha.
And that's literally why I have a guitar, or why I have a career, is because I don't know, I just was never obsessed with different bands or different styles like that. I never explored it. It's really weird.
When you do banjo, are you using the finger picks or just your own nails?
Just my own. I usually have fake nails on. I don't have them on right now.
You're out in Stratford, so I think they're going to open up this Friday, right?
Yeah, they open up. I've learned how to do them myself now.
So how long have you been doing that? You just did like the gels or the or acrylics?
I guess acrylics. I think that I'm getting acrylics.
Yeah.
Sometimes I guess I get gels if it's the different place. I've been doing that since I was 21. I'm taking 2 weeks off right now, which I never ever take, and I actually took my nails off. I just thought I'd let my nails breathe a little tiny bit.
Let's talk about your main guitar. We touched on it a bit earlier. It was built by Michael McConville, who's a local to you luthier out in Stratford. I just saw an incredible video about him the other day that Fred Lewis sent me, where he just did a complete overall intonation on one of his Gibsons on the nut and the bridge. Anyway, it'd be great if you could show us that guitar.
Yeah, well, this has been my main guitar for years, although I just got this Larrabee, which I'm kind of using more. But so this is my main guitar, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's an auditorium. So I've used this for many, many years. I don't know. It's got like jumbo frets on it, and I use a custom lightweight string. It's black walnut back and sides that he cut down himself.
Oh, wow.
Cool. And Sitka spruce top. Yeah. This needs a little love though for me to play it right now. I haven't tuned it in a little while, and I think last time I had.
Yeah, it's a great size. That size is really great for finger picking, the smaller
Yeah,
body.
I really love it. And then my newest one, actually, yeah, this is a high strung. I just use that for the black.
I noticed that on the back of that guitar you have a Tonewood amp. In my research on you, I've seen that you've done some work with that company for NAMM. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I did. I met them at NAMM. I went actually with my friend Mike McConville. He's invented a chiropractic table called the String Tech for working on the stringed instruments of any size. And so I went with him. And I met the Tonewood people and did a couple of shows at their booth. And I'm actually going to do a live on their page on, I think it's June 29th with my Tonewood amp. Yeah.
Do a pitch for him if you don't mind, because I'm not exactly sure. I don't really totally understand what that thing does.
It actually adds reverb, delays, and different sound effects to the guitar acoustically. So I could literally just turn it on, and then it would use the body of the guitar to add reverb to what you're playing.
That's the part I know, but I can't comprehend how the hell it does it.
Yeah, it just uses the body to conduct the sound, double duty on the guitar body. And then my Larrabee, which I have here, this is my Loudon. It's not a Larrabee.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God. Okay. I have a Loudon, which I bought at Blue Dog Guitars in Vancouver earlier in the year.
Nice.
And it's really lovely. And it's a cedar top with mahogany back and sides. And it's I guess the cedar tops are kind of the folk, they consider the folk guitars.
Right.
And it just sounds gorgeous with my voice. And why I bought it is because I've been performing with the chamber orchestra so much, and their instruments, are worth so much money. Like the flutes and the violins and cellos. I just really needed to up my guitar game to play with these guys, and just make sure the harmonic structure is perfect, and all the kind of small details that need to be there. Yeah, so this is my new guitar, and that's the one I played mainly with them, and kind of mainly for finger picking as well. If I really want to, I do find that that guitar has a pretty light bottom end to it, like it's really consistent, like through the DBG, which is kind of like how I analyze a guitar, acoustic guitar anyway. What are those three strings doing? Is one of them sticking out? That kind of
Gotcha. Okay.
thing. But I kind of sacrifice bottom end on this one a little.
Sure.
And so that's my favorite finger picking guitar, and then that one I love to dig in on that.
And then your banjo, and it's a 5-string banjo, right?
Yeah, it's a gold tone 5-string banjo. I do what I have to do on the banjo. I just figure out if I need to play a song, I just learn that song. I have been learning clawhammer, a few old style banjo tunes on that, which has been really fun, and I do teach the banjo to a few of my kids as well.
Do you use pedals to enhance the guitar?
I have an intense pedal board depending on what I'm doing. Like I would have there's some things I would use distortion or like delays or like I've got an LR Beggs pedal for EQing the acoustic guitar, and then I use one of those Line 6, the green pedal for delays and looping sometimes. Yeah, depending on what show it is that I am doing.
Like if you do a solo show, you do looping?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
I could do like
Excellent.
sometimes I would do a little slide thing that I would loop into like a drone throughout one of the songs.
Oh, very
or something.
cool.
Yeah, not quite as much, but yeah, I do use pedals, I guess, for my shows. I haven't used them in so long because I've just been playing online that I use nothing now. I don't even use
I know. My last gig was on March 14th, and all that stuff's still in the garage.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just kind of. I unloaded, and that was it.
I use a Fishman amp as my monitor. I never have my guitar go through my monitor ever. I only use the monitor for vocals.
Okay.
Just because I don't like them, like I'm just, my pitch is by ear and I need to hear things consistently, so I always use a on-stage acoustic amp. That Gibson is a J100 Extra. That was my first guitar I ever had that I would go to all the open stages with in Toronto with it on my backpack. And then this is an Eric Clapton signature Strat that was gifted to me by one of my super fans who was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and wanted to leave it for me, which is incredible.
Wow.
So yeah, it's an incredible instrument that I cherish, and I work actively at getting better at lead guitar.
Well, you can never sell that one. That one's you're going to the grave with that one.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Dayna, for being part of Guitar Players in Isolation. You certainly brought a different element to the series. Like I've done with all my other guests, at the end I asked them to play their isolated lick. So it'd be really cool if you could demonstrate some sort of fingerstyle guitar type of lick for us. Just something short with a brief explanation.
All right, here's a neat finger picking lick. This is, it's kind of thumb, all three, and then every other. It's one of the first licks I learned. My teacher called it I'll Be Gone. I'm not sure if that's what it's called, but here you go.
Dayna, that was a great lick. Thanks again so much for being on my program. It's been an honor to speak to you. Your career has been amazing. Thanks again.
Thank you, Ari. It's been an honor to be asked to be a part of this, so thanks a lot.
All right, take care, and hopefully we can see each other in real life one day.
That'd be great. I'd love to hear you play.
Take care.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Dayna Manning. It certainly brought a refreshing change to my series, Guitar Players in Isolation. Great to focus on a folk artist and fingerstyle guitar playing. That was my 12th interview. So if you like that, check around. Lots of other interviews with guys like Colin Linden, Colin Cripps, Steve Petico, Paul Chapman, all kinds of amazing players from the Southern Ontario area. Please subscribe and hit the bell notification button. We'll see you in another week with another great interview. Take care.